But when Man United had this period and Ten Hag's got a lot of stick and people were saying, yeah, but look at these results. We've got 5 wins in a row or 4 wins in a draw or whatever it is. But when you peeled it back and looked at who they'd been playing, the opposition was weak and they'd struggled. And that opposition there recently is pretty weak, but you can only beat what's in front of you. There's a big acid test coming up. FA Cup on Friday, which we have live against Villa, and then Liverpool. And that's where you're going to learn. You're not going to learn about your players walloping Borough by 6 goals at home when they're making mistakes. You're just not. You're not really going to learn a lot there. All you're going to do is get people sharpness and fitness like Chilwell, get them back into the side, get them a run of games because they've struggled in the full-back stroke wing-back positions. That's the kind of things you can take out from it. You can't really take much else from a side that basically lie down like Borough did. So there's some huge games to come. But this is a day that when Pochettino woke up, he went, please no, please, just please don't let this go wrong.
Let's stay there, though, talking about Chilwell coming back and talking about their 11 today. Is this an 11 that he sticks with for these upcoming games?
Well, I don't trust Modric at all. I think he's... I think what he does a lot of times, it's a head scratcher. He wants to do everything at 100 miles an hour, so I don't really trust that. Obviously, you know, Sterling and Cole Palmer are pretty much one of the first names on the team sheet. Chilwell, obviously. So, and then it's whether Conor Gallagher comes back in. He was on the bench today, or whether he sticks with what he's got. I would imagine he might stick with what he's got. So I don't know about you, Shaq. I'm okay with the goalkeeper, even if Sanchez is... I like this goalkeeper. And I'm not biased because he was coached by my old teammate and best man, Kevin Hitchcock, who said, by the way, this guy is going to be really good and he looks good. I think there's 7 or 8, maybe 7 you could hang your hat on and say that's who he's going to select. And there's 3 or 4 other positions, at least. Striker, one of the wide positions, maybe midfield, and then... one of the full-back positions. So it's still not a guarantee.
I think he sticks with this 11. And
do you like Modric against even...
Well, I think Modric at least gives you some pace. You know, the thing for me is you look at Chelsea and even when you swap personnel, you don't get much of a change. You don't get much of a change in terms of performance. You know, we could debate who should be the striker, whether it's Bro or anybody else. They need to bring somebody in. And that, for me, is a travesty of who Chelsea are right now. We keep talking about the money that they spend, but even as you change players in and out, it doesn't change the performance. It doesn't really change how good they look, aside from Gallagher, who they're trying actively to sell this January. So, to your question, yeah, I'd play the same 11. At least they got a win. At least this team is now playing with some confidence. Don't change that just yet. I think it's a very fragile confidence. It's a very fragile run, but stick with it because at least it's bringing some results.
But you've spent all this money, right? And Breuer might go before the transfer window closes if they get the right money, possibly. And it's unlikely they bring somebody in and at that late notice, but they might. But they've got this team coming up called Liverpool, who are without Mo Salah for African Cup of Nations and now injury. But yet you look at the 4 players, call them 4 players that can rotate. Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, Diego Jota, right? Not perfect, but pretty good. Then you look at Chelsea and you go, oh, we've spent that, but look, who are we going to play there? And who's going to get the goals there? And who's going to play up front? So there's the difference. Liverpool at least have 3 or 4 pretty good options, even if you say, oh, Núñez, you know, if he's not scoring goals, he's running the channels. If he's not running the channels, he's fighting with centre-halves. It's not just about goals with him. If you get goals from Núñez, it's a bonus. But when I look at Chelsea's options in that front 3 or 4, whatever you want to call it, it's nowhere near as good as what Liverpool have.
It's almost a little bit, you know, to the point I'm making, comical that Modric, all you can say is, yeah, he runs really fast. You know, that's kind of Chelsea's options right now, and you're scratching your head to identify what players bring.
Is it enough for what's ahead, Nedum?
I think, you know, if we're going to compare them to Liverpool's front line, obviously with Salah to come back in as well, then I think most sides up and down the league would struggle with that level of sort of goal scoring and contribution. But I think for the way that they played, I've got to say, Mudryk today, he was getting a lot of grief from his manager and a lot of grief as well from Enzo Fernandez on the field. He was kept barking instructions at him because every time someone's moving one way, he was supposed to be going the other, and he was doing the exact opposite. And there were so many little transitions where he'd get the ball and just turn it over with like a little stupid decision. And you can see the manager was losing more and more faith in him. And I don't know if that was affecting his confidence or whatever, but for me, I don't think he doesn't seem too viable for the next games if the way that they were reacting to him today is how they think about him for the whole season. So Madueke is probably going to come back in. And yes, they don't have the sort of star power that Liverpool have up top, but they still have an ability to score. We're seeing Cole Palmer have, the best season of his career so far. And you know that he can bring other people into the game. And going up against Liverpool, you will be outgunned, but it's not to say that you can't get something from that game. And even against Villa, anything is possible. I think Pochettino will probably try and find a side against Liverpool who might be better in transition. Hit Liverpool on the break when maybe they overcommit to a certain extent. But for this Villa game, I think it's going to be a good footballing affair. How can they sort of manage the way that Villa like to control that centre of the field with, say, their 4 players in there? But again, Chelsea, they're a tough team to follow just because sometimes, they can get a result, but it never looks the way that we want. But it's still a result nonetheless. And I wouldn't be surprised if they won against Villa and then maybe got something against Liverpool, because that first game of the season they had here against Liverpool was a really good game of football, and most of those faces are still playing for these two clubs.